Okay, I think we are live, ladies and gents. Hope you're all doing good. This is probably going to be one of the quickest Q&As that we ever do, to be honest, because there really weren't a lot of questions from the private community this month, which I was really surprised by. Where's everyone from today? We've got some Arizona. We have got Holland, Canada. Yeah, some people are talking about the time. By the way, the clocks changed here in California overnight. That's why I look a little bit tired, because I had to get up super early. This is a Sunday morning here, and I lost an hour of sleep as well. So I probably only got 5 or 6 hours last night. So hopefully I don't look too bad, but I don't really care if I don't. So yeah, there's a time difference. People think I'm late, but it's actually noon. It's exactly 12 p.m. here in California, guys. So I'm not late, never late. I'm always on time. All right, so we'll just start with a few monthly updates. I've got a few things to say, and then we should have a good session today because there really aren't that many questions. So if you've got some pertinent questions, then just get those ready. I hope you got your tea or coffee as well. I've just got some hot water here. Okay. And if you can hear that squeaking in the background, that's the parrot. She's just, if she likes to sit on my shoulder all day, and she's in her cage. So she's having a little bit of a fit at the minute. She doesn't like that. So if she gets too crazy, we'll bring her in and she can sit here. Hertfordshire, Switzerland, Portsmouth. Okay, good. England, Australia. Gosh, Toby, what time is it there? Redditch, Canada. Okay, good. Denmark, Connecticut. Wow, Sweden. Goodness me. We've got people from all over the world. Bulgaria, Derby. I got to say, I'm so honored and blessed that so many of you follow me, because this has only been a year now since I properly started this YouTube channel. I know it says on my page, 2014 or whatever, but anybody can open a YouTube account. So that's what I did back in 2014, but I didn't really start until a year ago. I think it was March time. So it's been so actually this is our 1 year anniversary. Come on. So 1 year now. And I mean, I don't know what we're up to now, 280,000 subscribers or something like that. So thank you everyone for that. I really appreciate it. Gosh, San Diego, Amanda in San Diego. I was in San Diego last weekend, and I really, really loved it. Vegas, yep, I'll be in Vegas shortly. Yeah, I'm going to be in Vegas shortly. A few people in Vegas, actually. Ivan as well. Yeah, so I'm going to be in Vegas probably in April, I think. So yeah, I'll let you guys know when I'm going to go there. But I was in San Diego last weekend, and it was like another world. So so where I live is Ventura County, where Meet Kevin lives. We actually live very close to each other, which is interesting. So where I live here, so we were in LA. We drove through LA as well, and that was crazy. I mean, the homeless stuff. I know a lot of you have seen this already, but the homeless crisis, and it is a crisis there, has probably gone up by 4 or 5 times since I last saw it. And no exaggeration. People are like, oh, Neil, how do you not know about this? I do know about it. I'm saying it's a lot worse now. It's much, much worse than it was before. So it's pretty crazy. I don't know if that's something, a lot of people have been asking me if I will go and film that. And I'm not sure if I will. I might do if enough of you want me to go and film it. But right now, I'm not thinking about filming that, because I don't know if I would have a different angle from what a lot of other people have done. But I might do. We'll see. I might walk around. What else have we got? What other comments? That parrot is driving me mad, by the way, in the background. Okay, a couple of comments. I'm going to talk about something in a second, which is been getting on my nerves with some of the comments recently. So I want to help. Actually, this will help transform something for all of you in terms of change and the change in movements. So we'll come on to that in a second. Firstly, I've got to say a massive, I'm really surprised. So you probably remember in December, I moved my thinking over to cryptocurrencies. And I said, how much how I regretted following certain people like Peter Schiff. He was one of them who told me to, who said, don't get into crypto. It's a scam and, it's a pyramid scheme and a Ponzi and all that. And I still believe that some of what he says is accurate in terms of it is a Ponzi, and that, but not all of it. Not all of it. Some of the cryptos are a Ponzi, and they don't have any underlying value. Some of these tokens have no value whatsoever. But others of them, I think people are misunderstanding what cryptocurrency is and the potential of it, because the decentralized finance movement is going to be huge in the future. So I went in December, and as of today, the 250,000 I invested is worth about 700,000. So 170% increase since December. And that's been very strategic. I'm not just buying random cryptos and things like that. I've been very strategic. So for all of you, I know a lot of you online are in the private community. So a big well done there. And we've been growing it and changing it every single week. So a massive well done if you are up and you've just followed every single purchase that I've said to purchase. You should be up 170% as of today. So a massive well done. We've probably, I don't know, we've probably got 20 or so million that's just been turned over in the community. So a massive well done to all of you. So great stuff there. Next question I've got before we get into the questions here from the community members. Is there any particular videos that you want me to produce at the minute? If there are, just let me know, especially while I'm here in California. Let me know if there's any particular videos that you would like to see. And then, and then the last point, I've got to talk about this because it is driving me a little crazy with a lot of the comments. So a lot of people, and I'm even seeing it on the feed here, saying, what happened to the housing crash that you predicted? Or people say, see, you were wrong about this. You were wrong about that. And what you've got to understand, let me use an analogy here. Let's say that you are playing football or soccer, right? Football in England, we call it, soccer in the USA. And you kick the ball towards the goal. And just as it's going towards the goal, two players lift up that goal and they run backwards and the ball doesn't cross the line. So here's the question. Did you miss, or were the rules changed? And the answer is the rules were changed. You didn't actually miss that shot. So I use that analogy because that's what's going on at the moment. It's not that the forecasts are wrong that I'm producing, because you know me, if you've been following me for last year, I tell you if I've made something wrong. If I've made a mistake on a forecast, I'll tell you what it was, and I'll tell you what I'm going to do next time to improve. Because look, I don't care if I look bad and I make a mistake. It doesn't bother me in the slightest, because that for me is about growth and learning. And it's about being able to adapt to change when it comes. But what I'm noticing is a lot of people are fixed. Think of it like like this cup here. People think finance is like a cup and that it's fixed, but it's not. Life, human beings are not fixed. We are constantly in motion and growth. So when people say, oh, where's this housing crash? You said a housing crash here. You have to take into account the change that has emerged in that period, right? This is common sense to me, but for some reason, a lot of people just can't grasp this very simple concept. So if I say there's going to be this crash at this sort of period, and then there's another stimulus check, and then there's another 1.9 trillion, and then there's another however many trillion, obviously this money has to go somewhere. So this is more complex. So I'm not going to go too deep into it, but that money has to go somewhere. And when it goes through into the hands of people, or a little bit does, they spend it. It goes into the economy. So it's gone into the economy. Now, what happens is it then goes into the velocity of money and it starts moving around, increasing. And what happens as you're going around? It gets taxed. So the government take their cut. So it's a very, very complex situation that's going on with all the money. But the money has to go somewhere. And the commercial banks don't want to hold it. So they want to get it out as quickly as possible. What are they doing? refinance your home, buy a new home, etc. So the money's going into the housing market. So it's impossible to predict a housing crash timing. So all the analytics and analysis is correct, but the timing, you can't predict that timing when they keep increasing the monetary supply, because it is like lifting the goalpost and walking backwards. So I hope that makes sense, because a lot of people are driving me mad that they are thinking that the economy is a cup and it's fixed. It's not. And that's why you have to adjust your thinking all the time. This doesn't just apply to the economy, it applies to your lives as well. All the time people are saying, oh, well, speaking to people here in California, oh, well, I'm staying in California because things will come back. Things will go back to the way they were. Speaking to someone saying, California will be a conservative state again soon. Give it a couple of years. No, I'm sorry. California will not become a conservative state in a couple of years. I just don't know where this sort of thinking comes from. But anyway, we will move on from that. Lots of comments coming in. Okay, good. I'm glad people are now understanding it. Good. I hope that helped. Thanks for that. Okay. Let's get into the private community questions then. And again, there aren't many this month. We've got 6. We've only got 9 questions. So that's amazing when we normally get 20 questions or so. So here is the first question. And it's from Joseph Kavanagh. Why has the premium gone so high on physical silver? Do you see this getting better or worse? I'm a little concerned buying American Eagle, so these are the 1 ounce Eagles, and paying $8 to $9 premium on the price in the event that goes back to $3. Okay, so first part then. I see it getting better. I don't see it getting worse. If you don't want to pay the $8 to $9 premium, I would say don't pay the $8 to $9 premium. Just wait. Silver is undervalued, so you take a risk either way. You can buy now and pay a high premium, or you can wait and silver might go up in value. I personally think it will go up in value. I don't put numbers on it or forecast, and I never have done, as you know. The only one I ever put a forecast on was, I think it was a year or 2 ago. No, it was a year ago, but I had made the purchase in 2019. And I said it was going to go to about 115 to 1. And a year later, I was almost perfect. I was about 3 weeks out. It went to 120 to 1. But that's only because I knew for an absolute almost certainty that silver was going to go there. Right now, I can't tell you. And that's because of the manipulation in COMEX, what JP Morgan and other banks are doing. There's nothing you can do about that. And this isn't me just saying this. It's actually proven. They've been fined over and over again for doing this manipulation. So we have a couple of things. There was also forced delivery. So those of people that were doing the shorting of the silver, it forced a number of institutions to actually take forced delivery, caused a short squeeze. It wasn't a lot. People are overhyping it, in my opinion, but it did do that. So we've had this shortage. We've also had a shortage because of the mines that were closed during, all that sort of business. But when I do that, that's a code for you know what, because I can't say the word on YouTube. So, no, that was an actual cough then. So just to put that into context. So it's really about supply and demand at the moment, with a few other variables in there. But personally, silver is pretty, steady at the moment. So if it were me, I would probably wait just a little bit. And if you haven't already bought silver, then yeah, you might want to wait, a couple of weeks, a few weeks, just to see what happens with the premium and the supply side. But it's really up to you. You take a gamble with anything right now and invest in. There isn't really any secure investment right now. Nothing at all, really. But I do see it getting better, not worse. Okay, next question is from MS. How should I approach diversification in cryptocurrency? Do you focus on a very small, big name currencies, or do you have a large and varied portfolio? For instance, do you look at Cardano and Engine and not just Bitcoin and Ethereum? So the first thing I'd say, MS, with the private community that you're in, the Patreon, you get access anyway. You can look at every single one of my cryptos, the date I bought it, the price, how much I put in, and then as a percentage, you can see what it is, and you can see the growth and all that. So honestly, if you'd have just done what everyone else is doing in the community and just copy some of my trades, I let you know. It's not just on the spreadsheet. It's also, I make a post to say, this is what I've just bought, or this is what I've just sold. If you just copy that, you'll be fine. You would be up 170% from December. So a lot of this, you don't need to reinvent the wheel. You could just copy a lot of the stuff I'm doing. This isn't rocket science. But at the same time, I do warn you, I do put an advisory note saying, do not copy this investment that I'm doing. So just over the weekend, I did a couple, and I haven't posted that yet. I'm going to post it today or tomorrow. But do not copy those ones, for example, because the growth of them has been like a rocket. So they are a little bit more risky than some of the other investments that I've done. But I also think there's a potential, it outweighs the risk on it. But what I do personally is I hold a very small basket. So there's 12 big market cap cryptos. So these are your Bitcoin, Ethereum, BNB, Binance Coin, Polkadot, Ethereum, Cardano, et cetera, et cetera. So I hold the big coins, your Stellar and things like that, Chainlink. But then at the same time, I hold a huge basket. There's probably 40 of them, of the smaller market cap. So these are top 100 to 150 market cap, where I think there's a potential for a massive boom. So a couple of those that I talked about on the video just on Saturday was Theta and T-Fuel, so Theta Fuel. Now, I've done really well on those. My T-Fuel is up 1,200% today. So if you can imagine, you put a good chunk in that, 10,000 or so, or for most of you might put in, say, 100 or 1,000, and it goes up 1,200%. If you put 1,000 in, you're up to 12,000. So some of them will explode like that, and then others will not grow as much. So a couple of mine that I sold off was, I sold off DAI, I sold off my XRP just because it wasn't really doing anything. If I see XRP coming back around, which I think it will do in the future, as long as, there's a few things with it. I won't go into everything today. There's a few things with it I'm not 100% confident on. That's why I don't want to hold it right now, but I might do later on. So some of those I sold off, but yeah. So overall then, a small basket of large market cryptos, and then a large basket of speculations. The other thing to say with crypto right now, just by being in the market cap is increasing. Do you remember I said in December when it was half a trillion, so it's 500 billion, I thought it would reach $1 trillion very quickly, and it did. And now I think it's going to reach 2 trillion as a market cap, probably in April. So, there's an expression, I don't know what it is, but it's something like, a rising tide lifts all boats, I think is the correct expression. And that's really what I'm seeing in crypto at the moment. If you're in it, it's not because you're doing anything amazing, you're super smart. And that applies to me as well. It's not because I'm super, super smart. I do the research, I calculate the best investments, and I go into them. But for most people, and it's funny when I see all these guys on YouTube who are crypto guys saying how smart they are, and look at this investment, look at that. Not really. It's just that the market cap has gone up so much, and their crypto has gone up with it. So I think right now, gosh, funny comments. Okay, so I think right now, everything to do with crypto, if you're in it, you're just growing naturally, and I think it will continue for a while, especially with all the new stimulus checks. I think they're going to keep piling into the market, but for how long, I will let you know. I mean, in the private community, on the day when I see things going around, I'll let you know that I'm going to start selling off some of my positions just to bring it down, cash out some, just for that security for my exit strategy. Okay, next question. This is from Adam Draz. Hi, Neil. Given there are speculations within the online crypto community that the bull run will end this coming fall, fall is autumn in Europe, by the way, do you have any crypto cash out strategies you're looking to implement? Okay, I just talked about this actually. Or are you planning on holding your cryptos for the next couple of years, regardless of the price movements and or cycle patterns? So I just covered actually part of that already, Adam. But I actually invest based on the long run. So I'm what's known as a value investor. And a lot of this does apply to crypto, but not all of it, but certainly some of it. So I invest for the longer term. I'm not investing for the short term. Although some of my positions right now are short-term speculative, which I don't normally do, but it's just because I can see the potential right now in crypto. And I know just from being on a lot of forums and things like that, where a lot of people are putting their stimulus checks. So they're dumping it straight into the cryptocurrency market. So that's one thing. But I do invest based on the long run. And I am looking at a cash out position probably around summertime, just to actually cash out a little bit, because I don't really know what's going to happen. Up until June, July, I'm fairly confident that the crypto market will go up. Now, what I mean by that is, yes, it's going to take some crashes. It's going to have a crash here. It's going to have a crash there. That's just normal. But in the long run, I think it's going to go up. Okay, Amir. Hi, Neil. What's riskier right now? Owning a condo in a big city or having money in the bank? Thanks. I think, Amir, they're both risky. So I personally wouldn't do either. But if I was going to have money in the bank, I would have it diversified between different banks for sure. I might even have some of it in, say, Bullion Vault or something like that, which I always talk about as an allocation of silver. So that's one thing I'd probably look at, because it's just like a bank account. You've got those numbers on the screen, but there's metal backing it behind, or gold. You could have it gold or platinum as well. But I think owning a condo in a big city is very risky right now. Because if you just look at trend lines of housing crises, but let me just say this. This is a very complex question. And there's 6 or 7 variables. No, in fact, maybe 8 or 9 that I could talk about here. But I think we would lose the trail of the question. So let me just talk about a couple of them. Owning a condo in a major city center is quite risky. And the reason it's quite risky is because look at New York and places like that. People are leaving those places because we have this trend right now towards more suburban living or rural living. People are seeing the risks and they're fearful of being in the big city because the writing's on the wall. You know, so many people say, Neil, don't be so negative. Everything's coming back this year. You know, I feel for those people. I really do. I'm not going to criticize them, but I personally, it's like saying, you know, me saying 10 plus 10 equals 20 and them saying, Neil, don't be so negative. You know, 10 plus 10 could equal 30. You just got to think positively, right? It is a mathematical situation we're in right now. And yes, they can keep doing all the fiscal stuff and just keep it going and going and going. But there is a limit. And the limit is confidence and trust in the dollar. And people say, oh, and the pound and the euro. And not really. It's about trust in the dollar. Because if the dollar falls, and this is why people keep saying, should I keep currency in this, you know, euro? Should I have this account? It doesn't make any difference. If the dollar falls, everything falls. because the dollar is the reserve currency. And that's just the way to think about it. So I wouldn't want to own a condo in a major city, but I do believe that with all this stimulus money coming in, it's going to keep pushing up certain housing markets. So it really depends on where the condo is, I think, is the main point here. Okay, next one, Brandon Mullin. Oh, thanks, Brandon. You give me an easy one this month. Usually they're difficult. With all the mortgage and rent forgiveness going on, buy-to-let is looking like a bad investment. Okay, buy-to-let is a UK term for real estate rental, by the way. If you started to rent today, I think he means rent out the property today, you might be stuck paying all the bills yourself. And yeah, that's definitely a risk. What signs will point to this market recovering and becoming profitable again? Any personal experiences lately? Well, I guess I'm slightly biased because you know what I did? I sold all my UK real estate, all my property investment. I sold a lot. And I probably sold it a little early, but I had to do it because the Section 24 came into the UK, which is, guys, you wouldn't even believe how crazy this is. If this ever comes into America or Canada or places, oh my goodness, it'll be a nightmare. So Section 24 is where you get taxed on your property based on your personal income. So I'm in the highest income bracket. So I would get taxed that regardless. I can't offset any expenses. They're not permitted anymore. And I can't offset the mortgage interest. Can you believe that? So there's no, so what is the benefit? So we did an analysis with all of our landlords in one of my agencies. And, we started going through and looking at it all. And it was pretty crazy that a lot of the people like doctors, accountants and legal professionals, people like that, they were losing money because they were on a higher tax bracket. So they were losing money on a lot of their portfolio if they had mortgages. So this is not good for the rental sector. Personally, I don't think so. I think it was a mistake to do it, but that's it. So that was one of the reasons. There was no point in me doing it because I always ask the question, if I didn't own this property today, and this is a question for all of you, would I buy it? And a lot of time when you look at your portfolio, the answer will be no, I wouldn't buy this property today. In which case, sell it and do something else with the money. Unless, of course, there's no mortgage on it and things like that. And you just think, I've got no mortgage on it anyway. I may as well just keep it. And I can, do different things. I can Airbnb it, or I can do this. I can turn it into a house share and things like that. There's a lot of options. So I think I wouldn't be in the market unless I had a very low loan to value on those properties. And I was in it for the long run. Let's say I had no intention of ever selling those properties. Then yeah, I think that's more reasonable. But you've got to weigh up the risk. I personally think, and I've already done the forecast on this, although it's now changed because the government's done more fiscal policy yet again, which has kicked the can down the road even further. But I do think we're going to see some growth currently in the UK housing. Look, in fact, I'm not even going to make a forecast on this because it's so complicated. You've got all these variables pulling the UK housing market up and all the other housing markets. It doesn't just apply to the UK. But then you have all these variables pulling the market down. And I think it's only a matter of time until all the things holding it up actually just crumble. So that's all the, like the furlough payment and all the unemployment and the rent moratoriums and the mortgage forbearance and all this. As soon as this ends, we're going to have a very, very serious problem. The housing crash is going to be huge. And as you know, I don't like making forecasts, but if you think about what happened in the 2008 crisis and we lost 40% of the value in some places, the crisis didn't go all the way. You know that? It was stopped. So there was still more that it could have gone. So it went 40%, but I think it probably could have gone another 20%. I think it could have done 60%. Now look at the USA. Who owns the most mortgages? The Federal Reserve, more than 35% of the mortgages. When did they buy a lot of those? During the 08 crisis, because they didn't, some places saw a 50% drop. If the Federal Reserve didn't buy those houses as it went down to 50%, it would have gone further. And if you look at what happened in Japan, 80% drop. What happened in the Great Depression, 80% drop. So you could have seen a similar thing. Now, what's going to happen this time? I think a lot of the commercial banks will step in and start buying the mortgages and the properties. That's personally what I think will happen, and the Federal Reserve, because otherwise you could see an 80% crash in house prices. So that's why I think these banks are going to come in and buy the mortgages and the houses, because again, it's a huge wealth transfer. What's going on right now? Because otherwise the whole market could collapse, and the same with the stock market. So it's a very complex topic, but I hope I did it some justice there. Next question is from my good friend Forrest Wolf, who I know is online in Germany. And he always asks me the most complex questions, so I leave his till near the end. Okay, let's see what you got for me today. Hi, Neil. The Fed and Co. will purposely pump up the MMT balloon, so that's modern monetary theory, more and more. And then for max damage, they will pop it on purpose. I'm going to remove some of his words a bit because he makes strong statements that many people might not agree with. So I'm just going to remove a couple. I see the trigger for the crash being a double whammy. Number one, interest rate hikes. And number two, a stop to stimulus due to manipulated CPI inflation hitting 8 to 15%. Is this a likely scenario? I'm going to answer based on not what you've said exactly there, because I don't know if those numbers are accurate. Let's just say, okay, I'd have to check this 8 to 15% and things like that. But let me just answer individually. So number one, interest rate hikes. I think it would be one of two things. Number one is, yes, interest rates would hike because there isn't any other option. But when that happens, the government's going to become bankrupt. And this has happened 3 or 4 times before in history. So, in different countries. So it's not that the government can't go bankrupt. They can. People talk about it as if that's it. That's the end. If they go bankrupt, the USA would collapse. No, that isn't what would happen. They would just go bankrupt. It would be a default. Now, what would happen is what's happened in previous defaults. Your other option, and this is the more sort of sinister side, is a reset. So we all know about the Great Reset. I did a video on it. We won't get into that. In fact, I shouldn't have even just used the keyword on YouTube, because now they're gonna look into this video probably. But we all know about the Great Reset. Everyone's talking about it now, and this could be something that happens if interest rates have to hike. Everything's going to get wiped out. It will cause a huge collapse. If we saw, say, 10-15% interest rates again, it could cause a massive collapse. Well, it would. There isn't really any other options. So that's one thing that could happen. It would either be a reset of the currency or a collapse via raising the interest rates to where they would need to go, which is somewhere in the region of 10 to 15%. I'd say 15% to be more accurate. So now let's come on to the second part, which is you've asked about a stop to stimulus. Is it a likely scenario? I would, just thinking ahead, trying to put my mind into the MMT mind, which is a hard thing to do because I think completely different to them. Would they stop the stimulus? Possibly. If they get someone who is a technocrat in, and a technocrat in the purest of the word, that is an expert in one particular thing. So I'm not talking about the more sinister technocracy here. I'm talking about, the purest of the word, a technocrat, someone who comes in and they're an expert in economics or finance or some very niche field. We've seen this in Italy and a couple of other places where a technocrat came in and they did what needed to be done to save the economy, although I would use that word very, very loosely because a lot of people wouldn't think they saved the economy. But I think one thing that could happen is UBI, universal basic income. The stimulus could very easily become a universal basic income by stealth, because the way that politics and the people, the relationship works, is that the people are responsible for the politicians being in power. Although, yeah, okay, we won't go there. So the politicians will give the people what they want so they get kept in power. So who is going to want to remove all the stimulus right now? I don't know a politician that would want to do that, because then they'll get, demonized by the public. So what could they do is a form of UBI, universal basic income. And if I had to bet on it, I wouldn't place a bet, because I think it's probably 50-50 which way it will go. Okay, Geordie De Boer. Hey, Neil, what do you think will happen with personal debt, mortgage and or student loans, for example, in the case of hyperinflation? Okay, well, we've actually got evidence from history of what happens in this scenario. And let's use Zimbabwe, which is a very good example. So what actually happened in Zimbabwe were the debts that were in Zimbabwe currency obviously inflated away. So if you had a student loan in Zimbabwe, it would have been inflated away. So it would be in your best interest to wait to pay it off as the currency devalues. And actually, that's probably something that applies right now. If I had a big student debt, would I pay off that student debt right now? Probably not. I'd probably wait a little while. If I had no cash in the bank, then I'd probably wait to pay it off. But if I had cash in the bank, would I use that cash? No, I'd probably invest that, because the investments right now are growing so heavily. Let's say you've got a 3% student loan and you can get 8% on the investment. Why would I use my 8% to pay off a 3%? There's a net 5% there. It wouldn't make sense. But if I didn't think I could get 3% right now, I would pay off my student loan. So I hope you understand how that works. The other aspect with that is, if you think about the inflation that's going on, which is being hidden, and also let's not use inflation. Let's use the word devaluation. That's a much more accurate use of language. The US dollar is having a devaluation. What was it last year? 40% of all the dollars in existence were printed last year, or they weren't printed. We use that word loosely. They were digitalized on a screen. So you've got to take this into account as well. All this new currency weakens the currency in existence. And that's why you're seeing asset prices going up, because the money has to go somewhere. It doesn't just disappear or go into a black hole. It has to go somewhere. So it's pushing up asset prices. So this is looping back to what I said at the start about cryptocurrency, the market cap just exploding. But obviously, if you own assets, so I'm going to do a flip to this. If you own assets right now, then it's not good for you. So if you've got assets with fixed loans against them, that's more risky for you, because people are paying you back in devalued currency. So it works both ways here. Okay, next question from Grand Panda. Hi, Neil. My question is, if precious metals prices are so heavily manipulated, how can we as investors make accurate predictions about the future price? Quite interesting, because this was the first question I think I answered. Was on, it was from Joseph, was on physical silver here. Well, this is a difficult one, but if you want an easy answer, is you can't. That's the answer. You can't make accurate predictions because of the manipulation that exists. You can really only measure their value, I would say, against other commodities or inflation. You could use the inflation calculators that are online, and that would tell you if they're up or down. But I can tell you, if you look at most commodities and you look at the charts right now, just do a search, you'll find these charts. Silver is down. I think it's down about 40% on what it could be. And if you look at it in the very long term, and I'll tell you a good exercise to do. Do it again, just do an online search. How many ounces of silver bought an average family home 100 years ago? And now look at how many ounces of silver it is to buy an average family home now. Very, very good exercise to do. And it just shows you the manipulation in silver. And I don't know the exact number in terms of the statistics of it, but I think there is something like 500 paper contracts for every 1 ounce of silver under the COMEX. And when I'm mentoring people, so a lot of you I know have had mentoring, you probably heard me say this, but it's like a game of musical chairs. And you've just got to hope that you are that last one out of 500 to sit down if you ever want to take, that delivery of the physical metal. So the answer is you actually can't predict where the price will go. And if myself and a lot of other silver people who are quite competent can't predict it, I don't think that really the average person will be able to either. Although we all got, our price targets of what we think it will do. But when there's manipulation involved, it stops those targets. I think silver's massively undervalued. If you think how much it is for an ounce of silver now, I think it should be easily 10 times that. That's what it should be easily, if not a lot more. But I'm not going to give any forecasts, so I won't get into pricing right now. But last question then, and then if you've got some questions online, let's just get those queued up now. So Zach Gilmore, what about the purchase of a rental home in Texas with a 30-year mortgage to lock in the low interest rates so the inflation can be pushed to the bank? Great question. Again, very, very complex, very, very complex question. Because now we're talking about a state within a country, and now we need to go to cities, but not just cities, but pockets within those cities. You see, we're now 4 tiers down in terms of the complexity that already had 8 or 9 variables, which if you were to go another tier higher, has probably got 40 to 50 variables. So already this is so complex. I'm just going to use some very, very simple examples here. There was an article that came out the other day. I don't know who it was by, but it talked about some of the most dangerous, the riskiest cities to own real estate in. And a lot of them were in Texas. I think there was 5 or 6 of those top 50 in America were in Texas. And I wouldn't necessarily say I agreed with the article. Most of it was fairly accurate, but there was one that was Austin, and it said Austin's very risky. I disagree. I don't think Austin is very risky because of the net migration in terms of high-paid workers. So you're getting a lot of the Silicon Valley crowd moving into Austin, Texas. So what happens when these people move in? It pushes up the prices of everything, especially real estate. But is it prone to a crash? Everywhere is prone to a crash. And in terms of how I think it would happen, condos we talked about, they're probably the first thing to go in the major city centers. I then think the houses in the main city region, then it would be the suburbs, then it would be rural. If rural did crash, I don't even think it would have a heavy hit on rural properties. And I think it would probably be the condos first that got the good news. So that's the way I'd probably see it. So if I got a rate of say 2.5%, 3% on a 30-year fixed, yeah, I mean, if you haven't got a rental property or already, you could get it. But you just got to weigh up, well, what if there's a crash, let's say next year? Let's just use, because we don't know the exact time or the fiscal stimulus is going to stop. Let's just say next year there was a crash. All right, so a year from now. Well, we might see, say, a 0.8% rise over the next year. So you've got a 10% growth on, let's say you put 300,000, you just buy a property for 300,000. So you've gained 30,000. But what if then we go into a crash and you lose half the value of the house within a few years? You've then got to weigh up, was it worth it? Because this next depression, if we go into a depression and not a recession, and it's likely we could go into a depression, all of my models and forecasts say that the next depression will probably last 25 years. Not to panic any of you online. I know some of you are about to go to sleep. I don't want to give you nightmares. But I do think the next depression, I'm not saying we're going into a depression, but I think we probably are. I think we'll probably last 25 years. So a 30-year fixed, you've got to say, is it worth it? Is it really worth it? And then again, because this is so complex, you've got to look at the interest rate. Well, what's going to cause housing prices to collapse? One of them would be a rise in interest rates. There's other variables that would cause a collapse, like a lot of things coming together at the same time. But the biggest one would be raising interest rates. That's what would cause a collapse. So you could say, well, I'm going to wait a year and forego that 30,000 equity growth and see if prices come down next year. And let's say they came down, and another year, another 10% came down, and right. And you could say, okay, well, I now the rate's 5%. I can get a 5% loan. So you've just got to weigh it up. You've got to use some of these online calculators to really weigh up whether or not it's worth buying a property right now. All right, good. So they are the questions. I think that was a good session, actually. There's some really good questions there. I'm noticing the questions are getting less because I'm answering so many complex questions every month. And if you haven't seen all the Q&As, definitely go back and watch them, because they'll answer a lot of questions that are relevant right now. But I think they're getting less and less. All right, let's see if we've got any questions then. Neil will not respond to this chat, so no need to ask questions. All right, Tom. Okay, buddy. We're answering questions right now. Would you buy oil, and how? Yeah, I mean, oil, good commodity to buy right now, is going up. How you would, if you have the competence, you can buy it through your brokerage account. If not, you would probably need a broker. And that applies really to any commodity at the moment. What do I think about NFTs? I'm not convinced by NFTs at the moment. I know a lot of people are. I'm still on the fence. I maybe, for me, it takes me a while to adopt new things. So right now, NFTs are not something I would invest in. But I am a late adopter because I'm a very cautious investor. I have to take my time with everything. So NFTs are not something I would invest into right now. But at the same time, the reasons why are the same reasons that I didn't want to get into crypto at the start. And that is because what is the fundamental value of it? Well, something like gold, the fundamental value is you can hold it. But I think it's overrated personally, because the fundamental value of like this cup is that it holds my drink. So that's the fundamental value. But what's the fundamental value of a cryptocurrency? Is the technology behind it, right? So I'm recording this on a laptop. Without the technology behind it, this is just some physical mass put together. So you've got to look at it from that side as well. Okay. Peter Schiff hates NFTs. Yeah. We know. I think he's got some good basis for that, though. Do you stake your crypto? Yes. So I do stake some of my crypto. So staking is where you basically loan it out. So think about when you loan out fiat currency and get a return. That's what crypto staking is as well. So I do a little bit of it. I've got to tell you, I'm not an expert on the staking side. There's a couple of guys in the Patreon who are amazing. I mean, some of the people are making a lot of money from the staking at the moment. Not something I'm doing. I probably will start researching that more to get into it. So if you've got any tips, drop it on the live chat. I'll review it afterwards. XRP, yes or no? I've already answered that one earlier. Good job on the lighting. Okay, I'm glad you guys like it. I prefer the dark where I turn the professional camera right down. I prefer that actually than this sort of background. Okay, a lot, right? You can ask a question, guys. A lot of these are just statements. They're like making a statement. Okay, so XLM. Yeah, XLM is another crypto. I have some XLM. It's not one of my top cryptos personally. I don't think it's going to be huge like a lot of people do, but I could be wrong on that. Will commodities explode? What? Yeah, Paolo, I think pretty much 100%. Yes, they will explode. They're already exploding. Look at lumber and things like that. Neil, deflation before inflation. USA going the way of Japan. Well, Japan's a very different beast. They're completely different. But it's irrelevant whether it's deflation or inflation first. But what I think will happen is deflation before the collapse. So, I wouldn't even focus on what's going to be first and second. Just plan for the end goal and you'll be fine. Please remember to click the like button on the video. I always forget to say that, by the way. Okay, so I'm just going to answer one thing that a few people are sort of talking about. So would I, and I'll jump back onto the chat in a minute. So in terms of assets then, and what assets you could own at the minute, you've really got to diversify yourself. So you've got to have some physical, you've got to have some silver or gold, whichever you prefer. But I do think right now, if you have some spare cash just sat in the bank, for me, I'm putting it into cryptocurrency. Is it a risk? Yes, but what isn't a risk at the moment? If you can tell me any investment that isn't a risk right now, let me know, because I want to speak to you, because there isn't anything that isn't a risk right now. Any commodities are a risk, even though they're going to boom. They can be manipulated. Silver's still a risk. Gold is still a risk. Cryptocurrencies are a big risk because they don't have that underlying fungibility, but they do have the technology which creates the value. There's risk with pretty much anything. Leaving money in the bank, there's a risk of bail-ins. Real estate, there's a risk of collapsing. And I've probably only got a few minutes left because my throat is starting to go. So by the way, actually, let me update you on that. I found out what was wrong with my throat. I have an intolerance to lactose. Who would have known that I had an intolerance to lactose? And I only found out because someone gave me some non-dairy, some lactose-free milk, and my throat didn't hurt. So there you go. Okay, I think I pretty much covered all the questions. Most of these are just repeats of what I've been talking about already. So, and finally, this is another thing. One of my Patreon members sent me this book. So her name is Maria. There she is on the back there. She sent me this book. Not that I have anxiety, but it helped my breathing a lot from last time and helped my throat. So thanks, Maria. But apart from that, guys, thank you so much for being on the live stream. If you want to have a question asked and answered by me next month, it's Patreon. level 3, and I will do that for you. So thank you so much for being online. God bless you all and your families, and I'll see you all very soon.